Good day and welcome to Drew's Book Reviews. So today, finally, the book I have been waiting to review for so long is here. I've finally finished it. This is an epic, massive book, biggest one I've read of the year. And finally, I get to talk about Rhythm of War, Book 4 of the Stormlight Archive. So if you're interested in what I have to say about Rhythm of War, stay tuned, that is coming right up. Okay, so Rhythm of War, Book 4 of the Stormlight Archive. There is so much to say about this book. To be honest, I'm not even sure where to start with what's going on in this book. Now, if you have not read the Stormlight Archive, you need to read the Stormlight Archive. This is a phenomenal book series and by far my favorite currently ongoing fantasy epic series by Brandon Sanderson. This really is a phenomenal series. So this book, Book 4 of the Stormlight Archive, this takes place about a year after the events in the last book, Oathbringer. And Urithiru, pardon me, and the Windrunners got Kaladin, of course, Navani and Dalinar, and all of them, and they have Urithiru, but of course things are not ended. This is only part way through a planned 10-book series, and I'm not even sure where to start with this one because there's just so much contained within this book. It's just an insane amount contained within this book. So, let's get right into it. Let's talk a little bit about this book, and I'll try to keep the first part of this video spoiler free, and then the second half probably going to be spoilers. I'm probably going to gush a bit about this because, oh my gosh, I just love this book series and this book so much. So like the other Stormlight books, this book starts with our prologue as a flashback to the night that started it all, the murder of Gavilar. So if you have read the other Stormlight books, you already know what I'm talking about. But each book has this flashback as the prologue to that night with a different character's perspective. So this one kind of opens up with Navani's perspective. Now Navani, of course, becomes a pivotal role within this book and the events that happen at Urithiru. So she does absolutely play a pivotal role in this book. So Urithiru is basically becomes invaded by the Singers and the Fused, which are basically the Voidbringers or the Singers or Parchment or Parshendi or however you want to think of them, but they're mostly referred to as the Singers. It's their version of the Knight's Radiance. Urithiru is captured while Dalinar is out on the field of battle dealing with things away from Urithiru, and of course Navani becomes a pivotal role in this. She basically ends up, she's forced into a position where she must work for the enemy and the arch nemesis Rabinel. Rabinel is the arch nemesis of Navani at this point, and basically the leader of the invasion force and in control of Urithiru, which they have this. They brought with them technology to basically render the Knight's Radiance helpless. And I don't want to get into too much detail with that because I don't want to quite get into the spoiler aspect of things yet on this video, but that is kind of one of the key components of the plot of this book. Now, while that's happening, we've also got Shalon and Adalyn. They are off to Shadesmar, where they must go ahead and convince the Honor Spren at Lasting Integrity to once again join with the Knights Radiant, because the Honor Spren are refusing to do so, and this means that there are no more Radiants that can be had, and this severely limits their ability to fight in this war against Odium and the ultimate destruction. So while they're trying to convince the Honor Spren to join their cause, Dalinar is out on the field of battle dealing with the betrayal of Taravangian. And in the meantime, the Tower of Urithiru, or the city of Urithiru, is under siege, essentially, by the Singer Nation. And all three of these things going on make for quite an intense and invigorating story, which is something that Brandon Sanderson is so good at, with how he writes his characters. And one of the things that I am loving about this, and some other booktubers mentioned this as well, is we see more character development. We get to see more of some of the characters we were introduced to in earlier books, such as Dabbit from Bridge 4 is another example of that as well. And we see some characters come back with a vengeance, like with Moash coming back with a vengeance. And there's one part in this book, again, I'm not going to quite get to spoilers yet. I will maybe come back to this when I get more into the spoiler area of this video. But Moash comes back, and there's one scene with Moash that honestly, it made me want to just pick up my book, throw it against the wall, and just scream like, no! Why? And it's just, it was amazing. Love the writing style on that, and it made me hate that character so much more. And that, to me, is the sign of a fantastic writer. Someone who can make you just loathe the character to the point where you want to throw your book and punch holes in the wall and scream and yell. And Sanderson does that so well with Moash and the actions that he takes within this book. So just absolutely loved it. That was just awesome within this book. And then, of course, we also have Shalon. Shalon has been dealing with kind of a multiple personality disorder throughout the series. So she is struggling between Veil, Shalon, and Radiant, as this new persona seems to start to emerge during their journey to lasting integrity. And there seems to be this inner turmoil and conflict. No, I say seems to be, but there absolutely is. Shalon is a character who has a tragic past. There's a reason why she has these multiple personas that have come through in an effort to help her to cope and deal with her own past. Now, I'm actually in the process of making a video on Shalon that should be coming up probably sometime in January, I would expect. So stay tuned for the channel for that. But Shalon's personalities and that conflict between her own psyche trying to cope and deal with everything that has happened to her in her past, and as this new personality starts to emerge, is one of the other aspects within this book. But not just that. One thing that Sanderson, I think, has done really exceptionally well, and something that I personally could relate to so much, is Brandon Sanderson's dealing with mental illness. So Kaladin, like, his mental illness, his anxiety, his depression, and the darkness of his psyche is a key component of Kaladin's story within this book. And I think Brandon Sanderson does an exceptional job with dealing with that. And it's not just something that's one and done cured, but it's something that stays with us for the rest of our lives. And Brandon Sanderson just does a phenomenal job dealing with that with Kaladin. And through this book, we see a lot of his hopelessness come through, and his darkness, and his being pushed to the point of giving up. Everybody he tries to save, he loses, and it seems like he always survives, but everyone he cares about does not survive and continues to be lost and to die, and this hopelessness. And it's at the point where he just wants to give up. You know, unless there be a little bit of a spoiler here, but he is relieved from duty by Dalinar, because Dalinar recognizes that Kaladin is psychologically and mentally not in a place where he should be on the front lines of the war anymore, and he needs to be relieved of duty. He needs to be taken out of that. Kaladin, of course, resents this because he doesn't want to be relieved, and he has trouble recognizing this in himself. Battle shock essentially is part of that. And Kaladin struggles with his own inner darkness and psyche are a key component of this book, and a really big part of the overall story arc for Kaladin's character, all the way starting back from Way of Kings. And I absolutely love the way Sanderson addresses this, and for me at least, I feel like Sanderson has done an incredible job addressing this aspect of his character, of the psychological ramifications. So this book really deals a lot with the mental illness side of things within this book series as a whole, and for me that is really, really great. In fact, there is one part of this book where Kaladin is talking to the Ardents, who are basically put in charge of dealing with people with mental illness, people who are suffering the way Kaladin is suffering, and he's speaking to the Ardents for how they're just locked up and put away, and how that's certainly not an acceptable way to treat and deal with people, or surely we can't just shove them aside. So let me just read that part of it to you as far as that conversation went, because I really appreciated how this was addressed. So this is from page 358 of the book, and Kaladin explaining what he thinks needs to be done. Someone needs to talk to them, try different treatments, see what they think works, what actually helps, instead of just assuming someone who has suffered mental trauma is permanently broken. So I love this idea, and it is just a great idea in general. I mean, when we're dealing with people with mental illness who are suffering, we can't just lock them away from the rest of the world and hope that they get cured. Too often, at least from my experience, they're so busy thinking that they know what's going on, that the professionals who are professionals in this field, in my experience, they think they know what's going on, that they don't stop to ask the individual, what do you need? And how can I help you? It's more of, we know what you need and we know what we have to do to help you, instead of talking to the people and really looking at what needs to be done. And I really appreciate that, and how Sanderson addresses those issues within this book. It's for me at least, is part of what makes him such an amazing writer, and it's part of why I love this series so much, because of how he addresses those things within this book. And for me, that is a great aspect. And one of my favorite aspects of this book as a whole, actually, is part of why I love it so much. So those are my non-spoiler thoughts. So now we're going to move into the spoiler side of things. So if you have not yet read the Stormlight Archive or Rhythm of War, I'm going to get into spoilers now. So this is your fair warning. This is where the spoiler talk begins. So there actually were some aspects of this book that maybe didn't work as well for me as I would have otherwise liked. So it's not 100% praise, though it's like 99% praise. When the Fuse come to Urithiel and they start effectively poisoning or corrupting the tower, which is actually a spren in and of itself. That's right, we soon learned that the tower is a spren called the Sibling. And we also start learning more about different types of light. We knew of Stormlight, we knew of Void Light, what we didn't know was Life Light, which kind of makes sense, because there's actually 3 gods in this world. We got Honor, who is dead. We got Odium, which is like the devil, evil god persona. And we got Cultivation, which kind of is there to link and join both of them together. So there's the Life Light, there's the Void Light, and there's the Stormlight. And a few other different types of light kind of get into the mix. So Navani's being held captive. She's working on the science of Fabrials in order to bring the tower, or in order to survive, basically, and hopefully find a way to end the occupation of the tower. But one of the really fun things that we have going on with Navani is, while she is basically forced into this situation to work for the enemy, Rabanel, who is the enemy Fused, who is occupying the tower, Navani is basically put into this scholarly scientific research position where she is basically helping the Fused find a way to create a device that will help her kill the spren that have bonded the Radiants and end it once and for all. But while she's doing this, she secretly is communicating with the tower, this sibling, as it has come to be known, the sibling spren that embodies the tower. Now, the sibling is very distrustful of humans in general because of what happened to the Honor spren. But through this communication, Navani is able to communicate with the 2 Radiants left, Lift and Kaladin. And through this bonding, she works with them to try to protect the sibling from further being corrupted. There are certain nodes within the tower, gemstones or nodes within the tower where they're being infused with void light to corrupt the tower and corrupt the sibling. And the sibling is basically dying and being corrupted and desperate for help as a result of this. But through this communication, Navani kind of helps form an underground, which she thinks is being kept secret from Ravenel, but it is not, in fact. And towards the end, Navani basically backs the sibling into a corner to bond the sibling as her spren, essentially, and Navani herself also becomes the latest Radiant, or a bondsmith like Dalinar. So that was a really interesting development within this story, and you know, look forward to seeing how that continues to progress in follow-up volumes in this series, in particular following up into book 5. So it'll be really interesting to see how that goes and where that goes from there. When the Voidbringers come, as some might still think of them, or rather the fused from the Singers and the Parshendi culture, when they come to the tower and they occupy the tower, they bring with them these fabrial devices which basically suck out Stormlight, which renders anyone who uses Stormlight for their surges and their bonds useless. They're not able to use their powers. Now, when this happens, the Radiants in the tower all fall unconscious except for 2. Of course, Kaladin, but also Lift. Now, Lift plays a very, very minor role in this story. And all the other Radiants are lying unconscious and incapable of using their powers. And Kaladin, while he's not unconscious, his powers are effectively limited. Now, it does make an effort to explain why Kaladin is still conscious and awake, but it doesn't really do it super effectively, in my opinion. And it just, as much as I love Kaladin and his story arc and the things that he's dealing with, you know, to leave him conscious and everyone else unconscious, it just seemed like it's something that needed to happen for plot purposes, and not rather than any other reason. Now, like I said, it does kind of explain, at least it does a little bit, as to why Kaladin might, or hypothetically, maybe this is why he's still conscious kind of way. But it doesn't really explain why, you know, about the 4th ideal and being close to it, and somehow that protects him. But nothing really explains why that's even a factor at all. Like, either the Stormlight is sucked out or it's not. This isn't the first time that Kaladin has been affected by this technology brought against him. When he went back home to Hearthstone to rescue the town of Hearthstone and rescue his family from the occupation of Hearthstone, he encountered the same thing there, in which his powers were sucked and drained away from him. So this kind of plays into the character of the Pursuer that we're introduced to. The Pursuer is out to kill Kaladin, because Kaladin killed the Pursuer. Now, at the Fuse, he's constantly reborn and resurrected over and over and over again. So he's basically immortal, but every time he dies, his sole purpose for existence is to seek out and kill the one that killed him. So there's this conflict between the Pursuer and Kaladin within this book. And they come to head a few times, and, you know, Kaladin, of course, beats the Pursuer in the end. And what else is Kaladin going to do, right? I mean, he's the main character, and you gotta have him beat the Pursuer in the end. So that is definitely part of that. But as for why he was still conscious, and Lift having the ability to bring the unconscious Radiants back to consciousness, so, I mean, it wasn't horrible, but I did feel like it was slightly plot convenience there. One of the other aspects of this book that happens within it is Adalyn's trial at lasting integrity. So he's gone into the trial. Basically, when they get to lasting integrity with Shalon and the rest of the crew, Adalyn is told that, or Adalyn offers to stand trial for humanity because of what happened in the initial recreance, or the initial time, the last time that the Spren bonded people to become Knights Radiant. So just kind of read a passage from the book again. Just kind of explains what happened with that initial betrayal from the original Knights Radiants. One event caused 8 genocides, Prince Adalyn. Pause pause and think on that. Nearly every honor sprend was bound, and those were all killed. Can you imagine the betrayal? The pain of being murdered by the person you trusted with your life? Your very soul? Men die, and their souls travel to the spiritual realm to meld with deity, but what of us? We are left to wander Shadesmar as dead souls, unable to think or talk. Our bodies are used, screaming as weapons by the descendants of the ones who killed us. It was not a simple mistake that led us to this state, but a coordinated and calculated betrayal of oaths. You people are criminals. The sole reason there was no swift retribution was because you killed every Spren who could have acted against you. So this is the position of the Honor Spren and why they refuse to bond anybody. Again, because they fear what would happen. Nearly all of them wiped out. It was like a genocide. And they're left as these dead souls wandering through Shadesmar. So Prince Adalyn has a significant challenge ahead of him as far as convincing the Spren at lasting integrity that they are worthy of these bonds. And of course, I have to say, I am very glad, actually, and happy it wasn't just some rousing speech during the trial that saved them. One of these dead Spren, or dead eyes as they're referred to, finally manages to get the strength to speak up at the trial and saying, hey, no, this isn't right. It was all our choice as well. She's one of the ones that suffered from this severance, this recreance, this killing off of the Spren and the initial side of things. So that is what spoke up and saved Adalyn, or in the end in this trial. And it was really good. I thought that it wasn't Adalyn's rousing speech that did it. Though I knew the end of the trial was going to happen. I knew that somehow something would happen to convince the Honor Spren that they must bond again with the Knights Radiance. And that was what did it. So that was really... That was good. Like, we knew the outcome of the trial. We knew what it was going to be. I'm just really glad that it was some other factor that led to that and not just Adalyn giving a rousing speech and suddenly they're like, we're convinced. Because that would have been a little too cliche for me personally. Now, one thing that this book does as well, like, this book really gets into the COSMERE. There are links to every COSMERE world out there. And they are embedded so deep within this book series that you really can't ignore the fact that they're there and they're everywhere. In fact, there's one part of this book where it mentions 3 different COSMERE worlds in a single sentence. The Ghostbloods are not of Roshar. They are, in fact, an organization spread throughout the COSMERE, and they're not from Roshar. We got references to Scadrial. We got Thakadar. We got White Sands world set up there. We got the Warbreaker is set up there. And that's actually really interesting as well in terms of a lot of the COSMERE links. Now we have Taravangian, who betrayed Dalinar on the field of battle. So Taravangian kind of has had this deal with the devil, so to speak, with Odium in an effort to save his people. We get deeper into that. We learn more about that and what happened there. So Taravangian takes Nightblood. And, I mean, if you're a COSMERE fan, you know what Nightblood is. And uses that to effectively kill and become Odium towards the end, which was just awesome. I did not see that coming. I did not expect that to come. And just now, Taravangian is Odium. And there is now this challenge set up and this deal made with Odium that Taravangian is now bound by as he has become the god. So this book really sets this up really, really well for the book 5. So the Stormlight Archive is basically a series that links the entire COSMERE together, and it is just going to be an awesome. Like, this is only the 4th book into a planned 10-volume series, so who knows where it's going to go from here. But this is just awesome. I absolutely loved this book in terms of everything that's in it. There's so many links to the COSMERE. So many references to the COSMERE. It is unbelievable just how much COSMERE references in this. Now, one of the other things with this particular volume as well is that this one is a it's kind of, the flashbacks in this book are focused on Venli and Eshonai. Now, a lot of other booktubers have criticized this. Criticize kind of a strong word, I think. It's just not as engaging, I guess, as the other flashbacks from the previous books. So we do get to see more about the Singer culture and the history of Eshonai and Venli within that culture. And I can appreciate what Brandon Sanderson is trying to do with that. Because the other books, the flashbacks, were pretty important to the individual character's development, and I think Brandon Sanderson has tried really hard to do that, but not just focus on the human side of the equation, but the Singer culture as well, as we try to learn more about that. I, like other booktubers, didn't find those particular flashback scenes as interesting or as captivating. It's not that I didn't like them, I did enjoy them for what they were, and I think that they were still an important part of the overall story. But the flashbacks themselves weren't that captivating for me, but I still kind of enjoyed them. And that's one of, I guess, the more negative parts of the book. It's hard to really call that a negative for me. I mean, I loved every aspect of this book, and Navani's science with the Fabrials and everything else. It's really hard to kind of refer to that as any kind of negative, because I just don't think that was a negative necessarily. But definitely the flashbacks were not as interesting as other things within the book, or as other aspects of the story, or even for the Stormlight Archive. So probably the flashbacks themselves are my least favorite of all the Stormlight Archive books thus far. And then of course we have the interludes within this book as well. They were not bad. Okay, you know, it's kind of fun to have a little bit of interludes with some of the characters, see what's kind of going on behind the scenes. But I don't have much to say about the interludes themselves in this particular volume. But overall, still super enjoyable read. I absolutely love this book. I love the Stormlight Archive, and I am so glad I finally got to read this book. 3 years waiting for this book. It's been crazy, and it's a huge book. Like, it is not small. 1,230 pages. Sanderson is definitely not known for small books. It is epic. Absolutely epic. But it is well worth your read, and you need to check this out. You need to read this because it is totally worth it. So, of course, as I mentioned earlier in the review, there was a scene with Moash that just made me so mad. So, talk a little bit about that. Is Moash kills Teft. Damn, I was so pissed off when that happened. It just made me so angry and mad, and I just wanted to, Moash. Oh, that scene where Moash kills Teft was just, it was anger, it was hurtful, it was just, you know, that was the last straw for me from Moash. You know, Moash was already a bad dude for his betrayal and what he did in previous books, but he's out to get, it seems Moash is like out to get Kaladin. You know, he's trying to get Kaladin to kill himself and to take away the pain and decide with Odium, but it just isn't working. As far as Moash is concerned, like, he's not been able to convince Kaladin, so he starts going after the people he cares about, and he kills Teft, and it's just a horrible, horrible moment. And it seems to be one of those moments that nearly breaks Kaladin when he discovers what happened. And it's just so mad when that happens, so angry, because again, that's the sign of a great writer, when he can make you so mad at what one of your characters does. And that is just, ugh. So that really made me angry, but in a good way, in a way that makes me love the book even more, because when you could elicit that kind of response, like that's just something that is awesome as a writer, and really shows that you really care about those characters, and that is so important in any writing. So that aspect of, or that particular scene was just, ugh. And then of course also we have Shalon's multiple personality disorder. As I mentioned earlier, this new persona coming out, it's referred to as Formless. Now, I don't know much about, you know, the mental health reality surrounding multiple personality disorder. Some booktubers said it feels like the resolution on that was too quick in terms of Formless coming out and Veil being pushed to the back, as she no longer needs this veil over her past and her history. But I don't know enough about it to really know one way or the other. I thought it was an interesting way to resolve that aspect of it, where Formless comes out and replaces Shalon as a whole, or whatever the case may be. It may be interesting to see how this continues to develop in future volumes of the Stormlight Archive, but I don't know much about that particular aspect of it. So I don't know if it was a good or bad resolution on that part, but what I will say is that overall, this book strongly sets up for book 5, and I am really looking forward to book 5. It's going to be like a 3-year wait, but you could bet it is going to be a super highly anticipated read whenever Brandon Sanderson gets around to putting book 5 out of the Stormlight Archive. Now, there is a reference within this book to Rhythm of Peace, so it kind of makes me wonder if the next book title might be Rhythm of Peace, since we just had Rhythm of War. I guess we'll just have to wait and find out, won't we? Now, what I'm really looking forward to is finding out the result of the challenge that has been set up with Odium and the champions that will be selected for that battle, which I imagine we will see a lot of in the next book, because at the end of Rhythm of War, it's left with 10 days to discover or to get everything ready for this ultimate final clash and battle between Dalinar and Odium. 10 days. That clash does not happen. That challenge does not happen. So the next book, I can only imagine, is going to pick up immediately after as we move towards that final epic battle at the end of that. So really looking forward to that. And once again, Brandon Sanderson has done a phenomenal job with his books. Rhythm of War, just awesome. I absolutely love this book. It is phenomenal. It is amazing, and by far my favorite book series going on right now. It's hard to, right now I'm feeling like I love Rhythm of War more than any other Stormlight book. That's probably because I just finished it. I honestly can't pick a favorite. I love them all so much. But in any case, those are my thoughts on Rhythm of War. Tons of COSMERE links, tons of everything that is just so good about Brandon Sanderson's book series. Easily 5-star for me. Easily 5-star. Absolutely loving it. So, as always, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you managed to stick around to the end, it was a bit of a long rant review. But again, when I love something so much, I'm going to go on for a while about it. But glad you stuck around to the end. Those are my thoughts on Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson. As always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I also did recently start a Patreon page. So if you care to support this channel as little as $1 per month, that's cool. If you don't, that's okay too. I'm just here to enjoy. It's my hobby. But hey, if you care to support my channel, the link to my Patreon will be in the description below. And I want to thank everybody for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe if you like this review. And of course, stay tuned, because I do plan on eventually doing reviews on other COSMERE material, whether that's White Sands or going back and doing the Mistborn stuff, which I have read, but I don't think I've done a review on anything Mistborn. But I do plan on doing more COSMERE book reviews and COSMERE content throughout 2021, so definitely hit that subscribe button and bell notification if you are interested in seeing more COSMERE content from me on this channel. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. Really appreciate it. Love this book. 5 stars. The entire Stormlight Archive is 5 stars. Check it out, and we will see you next time on the next episode of Drew's Book Reviews. Until then, keep on reading. Bye.